an internet problem. Thumbs up if you guys. Long Beach. Can you guys hear me? Clouds.
Yeah.
With a high of 61 degrees Fahrenheit and a low. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, y'all. I mean, that's a big old head to put me like that. So Nancy, I was ready for to put me in a big screen, and I had to figure out how to lower, just make my head smaller. But first, I want to say nice to see Eric again. It's been a while. And Jay, whatever you need, this is why we have the community. This is why we have Sangha inside. So whatever, please reach out. We Boundless Freedom might be small, but we our extension is can really reach. And Jenna, just for the record, just a little background with Jenna. We met Jenna in New York City, and we did a little talk over there. And she fell in love with us, and she followed us everywhere ever since, and now I think she moved to California just for Boundless Freedom. Just for me. And yeah, so from LA. I'm zooming in from LA, and him, Tonga, native land acknowledgement. And for me, my practice is definitely mindfulness. I mean, just practicing the mindfulness part because my life is full of trauma. My life is full of hypervigilance and hyperactive and a lot of things that happens in my life. So I react to a lot of things, especially my past conditioning. And trauma is rooted in my past conditioning. And the way I condition myself is through violence. So having a mindfulness practices help me really be present and really enjoy life as is. So that's how the practice really I really cherish. So I know thank you Nut for invitation. You have the worst timing because this is my first vacation I had, a whole full week vacation I have in like years, and you're gonna ask me to work today, but I love you. I love you, bro.
Excuse me.
And so yeah, he asked me the topic I want yeah. The topic I wanted to talk about is he asked me is restorative justice, right? Give a little more education on what I do and what is restorative justice. And you guys already know, my Buddhist practice is my savior. My Buddhist practice is my foundation of I am and how I think I'm very, very skilled at the restorative justice world because of my Buddhist practice. It goes hand in hand with my practice and restorative justice. So I took my time to share some to make some slides and make it all pretty and all. So please bear with me. This is just an hour ago. Restorative justice. This is a picture we took in Humboldt. Um, you guys can't really notice Humboldt State. They're kind of a hippish way. A lot of them was barefooted, which was really amusing walking around, especially being in the city. But yeah, we took everywhere we go, and I can always spot Eric. So restorative justice. I look up how my Buddhist practice contributes to my work in restorative justice. And I don't know, you guys recognize that's me at 12 years old. So who is Edwin Paragas? Before I get into restorative justice, I want to just share who I am and what led me to this type of work. As you see, that's me at 12 years old. I mean, it's kind of sad that 12 years old I'm looking the way I'm looking already. I was still adorable, but I was looking kind of a little ruggish. And how did I get to this point when I can mask myself in that persona? Like some of you guys already know, and I want to share that people don't know Philippines. I had so much protective factors in the Philippines. I was surrounded by loved ones. I was surrounded by family members. I had my aunts live with me, my grandparents. But at age 10, things changed, you know. At age 10, a volcano erupted. And that really shook my foundation, my life really. When that volcano erupted, like I remember my dad telling me is, hey, pack up, right? I said, we're just gonna go to the other town because there's a volcano. And I said, all right. I thought I was gonna be back in the weekend, but it turned out the volcano was so devastating that I end up getting sent to America, you know. I mean, just a little clothing of the weekend. They told us to jump on, you know, and then jump in a cargo plane, and that's how I came around. It's so funny. At age 10, like, instead of processing growing up, what the heck happened? I mean, I'm over here now dealing with the whole new world. And not only was I dealing with my family dealt with being displaced in our hometown. So America was really traumatic, you know? I mean, that really shook the core, that shook my system, and I was living in the fear in America. Even during the school, I remember my teacher introducing me in class. I talk, you know, one of the kids said that we should start calling you Bruce Lee. And I was like, I didn't even know who Bruce Lee is, you know, and but that set up a path to me being alienated and not the way I was talking. I was going to school in slippers and my lunch pail was fish, you know. So I was really constantly bullied, you know, and I felt alone. I was so scared, you know, and it got to a point when I was looking for any type of peers that I can really relate with. And those peers was the same people that was displaced. And we started hanging around each other. And at 12 years old, I was in a car like 6 months. And then one of the guys, I didn't know had a gun and threw under my seat since I was the youngest. And of course, since it was under my seat, nobody claimed it, and I wanted to fit in. I said that was my, you know, my gun. And so I went to juvenile hall at age 12, and that experience in the system, you know, at 12 years old, really rocked my world. I really felt more unsafe than anything. I was constantly getting assaulted just because of my nationality, you know, and the only thing I know how to do was learning how to do was fight. And I was realizing violence gets results, and so I just kept fighting and fighting. So when I got out of juvenile hall at age 12, I felt even more unsafe. And through that, from 12 to 16, that's all my identity was. That's all I really care about. I thought that my homies is the ones gonna keep me safe from this. My homies is the one that understand me. And the more validation they give me, every little thing I do, it progresses to something worse, more and more. And at 16, you know, after constant in and out of juvenile hall, going to 10 different schools in 4 to 6 years, age 16, I committed, you know, I thought was the ultimate deed from a gang. I took a life, you know. At 16 years old, I took another life. You know, he was 17, and right in front of his little brother, you know. And at age 17, and it really progressed, you know, like just trying to, that's all it did, is to survive until I started to really question my past. And one of the things that I wanted to do is how can I really hold my son? And one of the things that really was so big to me was my victim. You know, 15 years of my sentence, I really started thinking about my victim. And the only thing I knew about my victim was he was Buddhist. And I said, you know what, let me walk in his shoes. And that's why I joined a sangha inside, a Buddhist practitioner's sangha inside prison. And in prison, I found something that's really important to me that I didn't have all my life, was this little fella. I just found compassion towards this little kid, you know. That's me in the right for the record. And I found that little compassion, you know, like for that little self, you know, and I started to really develop what practice. Because of my practice, I really started to really understand people's suffering, my suffering. And that awakened the way I awakened my need to give. Being a Buddhist practitioner, doing classes inside, I really had the itch to be a service. And you know, after 24 years incarcerated, I um I was found suitable, you know, and first thing I did when I got out was how can I really be a service? You know, I can easily work for my family and my cousins, you know, in construction, but I wanted to really give back because there's an itch. There's an itch for me to really give back because I understand what suffering is, you know? And the only way I really to understand is, you know what, I was really good at being a service. So thank God I started, working for organizations like TPW with a staff member. And now the work I'm doing also, my other work is at Healing Dialogue and Action. And Healing Dialogue and Action and Boundless Freedom, what justice looks like when we humanize people, you know, it's really about not retribution, but humanizing everybody. And that's what a justice with heart. And some of the stuff I do for my work is I can sit down with, with folks that committed a harm. I go to 8 different prisons. I even have a curriculum that we develop Balance Freedom in Rikers Island. I teach victim impact. I also go inside juvenile hall as criminal messengers. We work 8 hours a day, 7 days a week inside juvenile hall to mentor the youth. Imagine somebody entrusted, to work inside for the youth coming out from juvenile hall, placing them. I work with family members of the incarceration. I sit with them. Just lately, last month, you know, I was actually sitting with the family member, helping deal with their loss of their dad getting murdered. And then I also sit with them, their 1 year anniversary, 2 years. And sometimes I don't feel like I deserve to sit with them, but they invite me because it's because of the compassionate nature that we carry and the energy we have. Really what restorative justice is. Every party getting represented and every party getting uplifted. And so in restorative justice, the excuse me real quick. This is in a way. Sorry. In restorative justice seeks to examine harm and impact of crime and determines what can be done to repair that harm while holding who is cost who caused it accountable for his or her action. Accountability. Let me see if I can take that off. Sorry. Like you guys' faces. It's not like, oh, I see. There you go. Sorry. Accountability for the offender, person that committed a harm, means accepting responsibility and acting to repair the harm done. That's what restorative justice is the core of it. But I know they say that restorative justice been practiced since the 60s, but restorative justice is about the community. Restorative justice in some of the tribes is when one person commit a harm, it's not just that one person. It's the whole community. Like he broke a contract of committing a harm. Now broke the contract of to be in community. Being community back in the day is so important because it's about survival. So if you committed a harm, all the parties involved trying to restore it, trying to restore the community. And that's what we're really so important why we need as citizens to work. The old way doesn't work. This is a difference between the old ways and the new ways. In restorative justice and retribution, it's two different ways. I remember when I first time I got locked up. When I was 12 years old, it was about it was about me and what I did and really proved the guilty. So in restorative justice, crime violates people in relationship, like what I was talking about. It's when restorative justice, it's about everybody's involved. And retribution, crime violates states and laws. When the crime, back in the old days, when the crime is broken, the only thing that they're really concerned about what state or what laws. Nobody really focuses. The second part is justice focuses on the needs and obligations so things can be made right. I know we talked about that as and it's trying to fracture the relationship that was broken because of the harm. In the old way, justice focused on establishing guilt so punishment can be applied. The only thing that really is cared about in system is you're guilty and how can we punishment? It's called just desert. We want to see what you've done so we can punish you as much as hard as we can. And maybe if we punish you as much as possible, that maybe that will help you change things. But that don't work with people like me. I was used to punishment. I was used to getting stomped down. I was used to being in an environment that's not optimal. So punishment to me is just I know how to cope with punishment. So punishment to me is just is helping me sit with my talk. Punishment and guilt is just making me hyperactive again and overreactive of my condition. And the way I do that is through what I was taught, growing up, the behavior I have. And the third part is the central parties are the persons and the person who have caused harm. I mean, that's the people that we need to focus on. Instead of the law, we need to focus on all the parties that was committed. No, that was part of the harm. And then once again, we mentioned the central partners are the state and defendant. Like we're basically it's a piece of paper. The concept else matters in the retribution. Justice is sought through dialogue and mutual agreement. That's why we do mediation because we really want to focus on the core issues to find healing. We don't want to sit it the way we're the way they want us is us versus them. Justice is sought through the conflict between parties versus us versus them. I remember sitting with survivors, and one of the survivors said, "You know what? We wanted to forgive the person that committed the harm, but the DA snapped at us. The DA said, "Well, you're not honoring your daughter then if you want to forgive them." Then they felt like the DA's obligation is, "Oh, then we're the ones gonna honor your daughter since you guys don't want to honor from." What kind of system is that? Like every time I go to court is always one side or the other. It's never any type of dialogue between them and what they really need, and harm. I always believe like the only way to really true show yourself accountable is to take ownership and do what you need to do to make amends. And that's how to really to repair the harm. And but the retribution old days is accountability is achieved by punishing those who was judged as offenders. It's, once again, it goes back to the court versus the person that committed the harm, and nobody else really have any voice in the old system. So now we're going to talk about the parties involved that needs to be restored, as restore the relationship that was broken in the harm. Of course, the people that was harmed, the person that offended, and the community. Survivors of harm. The one thing I hear over and over with survivors is the fact that they just want to feel safe. That's the first thing I always hear. They just want to feel safe. You know, when I mentioned a while ago, when I sit with survivors and knowing what I did and they know what I did, I sometimes feel like an imposter. Do I really have the right to sit with people that lost a loved one or that was harmed? And all in all, what I hear from survivors, you know, is the fact that they just want to be heard. They just want to feel they want to feel like they were heard and they're part of a process that can lead them to whatever they need to be led. And one of the things they always ask is why. That's the first thing the survivors of harm, you know, always ask. Why? Why me? Why my loved one? Why? Because over and over they play in their head like, what is it? Is it me or did I do something? They want to know. They're constantly second guessing themselves. So just hearing the why from the person that committed the harm, it means so much to them. At court, most of the court, like for me, I took the at 16, I took the plea bargain, life sentence, a plea bargain. So my victims never heard of why, who I was, and what it is. They didn't even show up at the court you know, because it wasn't even a process to hear any of the reason why or the motive why, and satisfy them, but just hearing that it wasn't their fault, the person that was going through whatever they're going through means a lot to them, you know. The second part about, the survivor's needs is what are you doing to ensure that no other family members will go through this? That means so much to them. Because what they feeling, the violation they feel, they don't want nobody else to feel the same way. And they want to ensure that, you know what? We want to know that if are you taking classes? Are you doing what you're supposed to? Are you taking ownership? So hearing what they're doing to ensure that no other families will go through, it means so much to them. Even though they have, whatever they feel, but knowing that, what, no other families are going through, just need to hear. And the third is, what are you doing to honor their loved ones or to honor them or whatever. That is so crucial to this restorative justice piece. What is that person really doing to ensure that the relationship can be fixed, Biggest thing is hearing the harm of how they violated them. One of the things that is so they're not necessarily looking for a person to serve the rest of life in prison. No. Their biggest thing is they want them to really understand the harm they caused them. Let me repeat that. They really want the person that committed the harm, really grasp and understand, look in their face, the harm they caused them. If their inner belief is, if you see the anguish going through for the violation, that can deter you and cultivate up, and most of them is going to get out of prison. It's not going to really make society even safer. But for them, is to really see the anguish of a family member, what they put themselves, deter you from ever committing another harm to another family. So they want their pain to be put out there, not just or it's your turn for a victim impact, a quick 2 minutes. They want to be part of this process. They want to be heard. My first experience hearing a family member when I was accompanying you for a step down was the dad. He said, "You know what? It's all good that this kid is getting all the help, he's doing all the programs. But what about my daughter? What about my daughter that was raped? Was only 4 years ago, and she hasn't left her room. She hasn't left room. She doesn't eat. What about her? What about it? Why do I have to pay, my own therapy because the state won't provide that?" Restorative justice core is the central really figure is the survivors. We should focus on the survivors of harm and really harm. So yes, so that's the survivors. The person that committed harm, I think we all we all over here, we're all go volunteer to go inside or we have loved ones inside. So we all know how important it is, how to hold people accountable, trauma-informed care, individualized approach, being heard in the process, tools to cope, coping skills. I think we put one's accountable and to to lead them towards, the healing process so they can be a service of others. And of course, the community. I mean, in restorative justice, community needs a strong sense of collective responsibility, resources for healing and reconciliation, public education about the restorative justice model, and commitment to identify and addressing the root causes of conflict to effectively implement restorative practice and promote a safer, more cohesive community. After you guys see, that's Nancy's dog. Sorry, Nancy. I know I didn't ask you to put your dog in this, but that's it's a great picture. So yes, community restorative justice is three components, right? I mean, yes, the personal harm, the restorative justice too. That's why it's sad to say, even though stats doesn't back it up. I mean, we see what's going on in the Bay Area. We see what's going on in LA because the fear-based narrative of how people voted and so in restorative justice, community needs to be involved to be part of the village to uplift lives, not just survivors, not just people harmed, to lift up. Without the community, then we're not really focusing on really like fixing the relationship. Like that's why it's so important. Community needs to be part of the process, not just the state representative or the lawmakers or the law enforcement. We need everybody to have that committed the harm. Only then we can really come as a village and and of up no people hurt people. So what we're trying to do is heal people. So we that's what we're really trying to do in this process. And don't mind that guy, he's just meditating. And you see, I'm soaking wet in that. I just came from the river. But how is Buddhism and RJ? I love this couple passages. I was gonna talk about it, but this really captures why Buddhism and restorative justice has the same type of components, closely restorative justice principles by emphasizing the interconnectedness of all beings, promoting compassion for both survivors and person committed the harm, and focusing on repairing the harm and restoration rather than solely punishing wrongdoing attribution. This means that both philosophies prioritize understanding the root cause of conflict and working towards individual transformation to emphasize in the Buddhist tenets as well as in restorative justice and suggest addressing conflicts at the internal root causes instead of singularly fighting symptoms. A Buddhist way to end suffering is to increase the beneficial counterparts instead of fighting the harmful states. Other Buddhist principles that restorative justice promotes are compassion and nonviolence. Restorative processes are built on respect and compassion, which Buddhism authors several books and Zen teaches, which grows out of compassion for everyone involved when someone hurts another. In restorative justice, a community need participation in addressing harm, access to resources for healing and reconciliation, public education about restorative justice model, and commitment to identifying and addressing the root causes of conflict to effectively implement restorative practice and promote a safer, more cohesive community. Let me see, sorry. One of the big thing for me is it's so important and comes down to my practice is the community, especially the sangha part. You know, when I went sat in the sangha, that's when I found my community. I've been in so many fights. I've been in riots, and I thought that I was doing what I'm supposed to be doing in prison because I'm part of the community. I'm part of the gang culture, and that really changed when I sat in circles. I sat in the sangha that we all shared the same values, each other as human beings, seeing each other as human beings, and that's really so crucial. That's why community is so important. I know Miss Hefner, I call her Miss Hefner, Carrie. She's became one of my closest friends, and she was, my counselor inside, Ironwood State Prison. And we became friends because I stopped looking at people as us versus them. I started looking at people as human being and getting to know Miss Hefner. She's probably one of the, great people I know to this day. People I came across with correctional officers, people that committed harm, human beings. We all know my close friendship with my other correctional officer, Miss Court. I'm able to talk to the judges. I'm able to talk to probation. I'm able to talk to law enforcement, and there we work together as one because we're all trying to achieve one thing. How can we hold somebody accountable? How can we uplift people's life and give them voices? And how can we really repair the harm so we can be a community? And that with self is the true essence of what to live our life in a meaningful fashion that we don't have to have all the stressors. That is my talk. And sorry, I talk so much. I get really passionate.